If your life feels noisy, rushed, or scattered, it's not because you're weak. It's because you start your day already on the battlefield. But what if your morning became your weapon? What if 1 hour a day could reset your mind, rebuild your confidence, sharpen your focus, and finally put you back in control? That's the promise of the 5 a.m. Club. Stay till the end. Your future self is begging you to. Before dawn, the world is silent. Cities still sleep, traffic hasn't begun, social media hasn't started shouting, and the mind has not yet scattered into the 1,000 fragments demanded by the day. That hour before sunrise is where the internal world is clearest, where your future is decided, where you either rise into mastery or descend into mediocrity. This is the philosophy at the heart of the 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, a story disguised as a guide, teaching that greatness is less about talent and more about the rituals that shape character. The story begins with people who are lost, though from the outside they seem fine. A frustrated artist struggling to find her spark again. An entrepreneur exhausted by pressure and uncertainty. Both meet a mysterious billionaire, not loud, not boastful, but wise, calm, controlled. He does not talk about success as noise, but success as discipline. He explains that the world rewards those who understand the psychology of mornings. He tells them, almost like a poet more than a mentor, that morning is not when the sun rises. Morning is when your purpose awakens. He invites them into what he calls the 5 a.m. Club, not a group of elite people, but a community of individuals who have chosen to wage war against laziness, distraction, and emotional chaos. The first lesson he teaches is that your day is won or lost based on how you start. Most people wake up reacting, checking messages, reading news, scrolling social feeds, immediately absorbing the world's agenda. Their minds become chaotic before clarity has even had the chance to breathe. But the elite, the highly effective, the deeply fulfilled, begin their day intentionally. He breaks it down into something deceptively simple. Wake up at 5 a.m., but not merely to be awake. Rather, to use that hour strategically. He calls it the 20-20-20 formula. The first 20 minutes for intense physical movement, the next 20 minutes for reflection, and the final 20 minutes for learning and growth. This system is not about the clock. It is about engineering a state of peak mind, peak emotion, and peak character before the day begins. And here is where the first lesson deepens. Discipline is not painful when it becomes identity. At first, waking at 5 a.m. is a battle. The body begs for comfort. The mind resists change. The old habits try to reclaim their throne. But once the identity of I am the kind of person who rises before the world sets in, the act becomes effortless. It becomes pride, confidence, quiet power. This principle applies far beyond mornings. Consider athletes like Cristiano Ronaldo, widely regarded not just for talent, but for consistency. While others relax, he trains. While others sleep in, he sharpens his craft. His discipline became identity. Even Harvard happiness expert Arthur Brooks exemplifies this principle, waking at 4:30 a.m. nearly every day and heading to the gym just 15 minutes later, dedicating an hour to exercise 7 days a week. The billionaire in the story wants the artist and entrepreneur, and by extension, us, to understand that success is not about what you occasionally do, but what you repeatedly do until it becomes who you are. But as they continue learning from him, another deeper insight emerges. The world belongs to those who are masters of their inner world. You cannot lead others until you lead your emotions. You cannot create art if your mind is in chaos. You cannot build a business if fear rules your decisions. And this is where the 5 a.m. hour becomes sacred, because it is the only time when the world is quiet enough for you to confront yourself. The billionaire explains that during the early mornings, the brain is in a unique biological state. Cortisol levels are lowered. Dopamine pathways are clean. Creativity is heightened. Emotional resilience is strengthened. But if one waits until the day has begun, stress, demands, notifications, and noise take over. You spend the day reacting instead of directing. This is why Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, protects his morning hours fiercely. refusing to schedule early meetings because that's when he's most productive. He understands what the billionaire teaches. The first few hours of the day are too valuable to surrender to the world's agenda. Here we learn lesson by progression. To live a life of mastery, your mind must not be controlled by external forces. The modern world is engineered to distract. Algorithms designed to pull your attention. Corporations designed to hijack your focus. Entertainment designed to keep you passive. The billionaire warns that the most valuable currency of the modern age is attention. Whoever controls your attention controls your destiny. Consider the way social media platforms operate. Every swipe engineered, every notification calculated, every trend curated to keep you scrolling. If one rises at 5 a.m. only to immediately pick up the phone, the ritual is broken. The morning must be pure, untouched, undiluted by the world's desires. Arianna Huffington, founder of Thrive Global, has built her morning routine around what she doesn't do. She deliberately avoids jumping to her phone or social media, using this time instead to connect with herself, practice gratitude, and meditate. This leads naturally into the next subtle lesson. Solitude is not a luxury. It is a necessity for great thinking. Great ideas are born in silence. Great breakthroughs occur in stillness. Great clarity arises when the noise of the world fades. Think of thinkers who shaped reality. Nelson Mandela, reflecting in the quiet isolation of prison. Steve Jobs taking long barefoot walks to think. Writers and scientists known for retreating into solitude. They understood that the highest battles are internal, fought in private long before they are won in public. But solitude is uncomfortable for the untrained mind. When one first wakes at 5 a.m. and sits in silence, thoughts feel loud, fears, regrets, doubts rise to the surface. The billionaire teaches that this is not failure. This is purification. Just as the body must sweat to cleanse itself, the mind must surface discomfort to release it. This is emotional mastery, and emotional mastery is the foundation of power. From emotional control grows focused execution. The early morning is where priorities are decided. Without this intentional clarity, the day scatters into busyness, a life of constant doing but little meaning. Many people have calendars full of movement, but lives empty of fulfillment. They confuse action with purpose. The billionaire tells them that many people are busy escaping the reality that they are not aligned with their true calling. The 5 a.m. practice forces alignment. In the silence of morning, the soul cannot lie. You see who you are. You see who you must become. And you begin the slow, steady walk toward that version. Here enters the next essential progression. Small daily improvements lead to remarkable achievements over time. This is the concept of marginal gains, not changing your entire life in one dramatic gesture, but improving by 1% every day. Wake a little earlier. Learn something new. Reflect deeply. Train your body. Strengthen your spirit. Over months and years, this compounds. It becomes greatness. Sam Altman writes about this principle. Compound growth gets discussed as a financial concept, but it works in careers as well, and it is magic. A small productivity gain, compounded over 50 years, is worth a lot. This is visible in real life everywhere we look. Look at people who seem to transform suddenly. The entrepreneur who becomes successful, the artist who becomes recognized, the athlete who becomes legendary. It was never sudden. It was the result of disciplined, often invisible work done when no one was watching. And mornings are the stage where this invisible work happens best. Consider Burna Boy, the Nigerian Afrobeats artist, who in 2023 became the first African artist to sell out a U.S. stadium, and in 2024 became the first Afrobeats artist to perform at the Grammys. His collaborator Busta Rhymes praised his work ethic, noting that Burna Boy is fast, efficient, and very clear. When he knows what he's going to do, he doesn't waste time. This efficiency didn't emerge overnight. It was built in countless early mornings, in quiet studios, in moments when no one was watching, but he was still working. But the billionaire also emphasizes something profound. Greatness requires protecting your environment. You cannot rise if you are surrounded by cynics, doubters, constant complainers, or those addicted to average. The artist and entrepreneur are encouraged to examine the people around them, not with judgment, but with awareness. Energy is contagious, habits are contagious, mindset is contagious. Growth requires curating the people who have access to your mental space. This does not mean abandoning people. It means leading yourself so strongly that your growth becomes the standard others naturally rise to. The morning ritual is where the strength for this is forged. And then, the billionaire shares a concept that changes their understanding of success entirely. The 4 interior empires: mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set. Most people chase success through only the first, mindset, by reading books, learning strategy, acquiring knowledge. But to live a deeply successful and fulfilling life, one must also build emotional depth, physical vitality, and spiritual grounding. A brilliant mind without emotional balance becomes anxious. A compassionate heart without discipline becomes overwhelmed. A strong body without purpose becomes restless. A spiritual soul without clarity becomes lost. The 5 a.m. ritual is where all 4 are strengthened at once. Oprah Winfrey demonstrates this holistic approach. She starts her day with an hour in her home gym, working out on a treadmill and elliptical, recently losing 42.5 pounds not through diet, but through commitment to morning cardio. The physical movement first thing in the morning resets the chemistry of the brain and energizes the body. The reflection practice heals the emotional layers and builds resilience. The learning period expands knowledge, creativity, and insight. And the stillness, the silent moments where one simply is, nurtures the soul. In this way, the morning becomes a training ground for life. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella embodies this principle, making daily exercise non-negotiable. For me, the daily ritual is just a half hour of hitting the gym every day. It doesn't matter where I am, what time zone, how late I got in. I get up and get to the gym. This consistency across time zones and circumstances demonstrates the power of making morning rituals identity rather than choice. The artist begins to rediscover her creativity, not through force, but through inner quiet. The entrepreneur begins to lead with clarity rather than panic. Their transformation is not dramatic and sudden, but subtle, steady, and powerful, exactly the way true growth always is. And so, the billionaire concludes the first stage of their training with this truth. If you own your morning, you elevate your life. If you lose your morning, you lose your day. And your days are your life in miniature. Your future is not decided by your dreams, but by your morning rituals. This is the foundation. The transformation deepens. Identity, mastery, and the battle for your future. The billionaire continues guiding the entrepreneur and the artist, not through lectures, but through experiences, because true understanding cannot be memorized. It must be lived. He takes them to extraordinary environments, sweeping oceans, quiet mountains, ancient streets buzzing with philosophical history. He does this for a reason. Environment is a silent sculptor of identity. When you change where you are, you begin to change who you are. This is why the morning hour matters so deeply. At 5 a.m., there are no crowds, no comparisons, no noise, only the truth of your own thoughts. And in that silence, you meet the person you are becoming. Growth happens when the old identity is shed and the new identity begins to root, not through motivation, but through repetition. So the billionaire explains something the world often misunderstands. You don't wake up early because you're disciplined. You become disciplined because you wake up early. Discipline is not a personality trait, it is a muscle. Character is trained. Focus is engineered. Greatness is built. The entrepreneur, overwhelmed by past failures and future fears, is challenged to face something difficult. You cannot create a magnificent life while clinging to an identity shaped by past disappointments. Every sunrise is an invitation to become someone new. This is why 5 a.m. is symbolic. It marks the daily death of the old self and the daily birth of the self you aspire to be. Here, the billionaire introduces one of the core psychological principles of the book. The victory hour, the first hour of the day, is where identity is forged. The physical movement isn't just to energize the body. It signals to the brain that you are a person who rises to challenge. Reflection is not mere meditation. It cleans mental fog and emotional baggage, making space for clarity. Learning is not simply gathering information. It feeds the mind with originality, insight, and higher-level thinking. Step by step, the characters begin to realize success is not something you pursue. Success is what you attract by the person you become. This is visible in the world around us. Take Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes in history. Her greatness did not come from talent alone. It came from relentless, invisible hours on courts when nobody watched. It came from early mornings, sweat, pain, repetition, rebuilding, evolving, reinventing. The discipline became identity. The identity created mastery. The mastery created legacy. Or consider tennis champion Naomi Osaka, whose morning routine on training days begins with a breakfast smoothie made of kale, spinach, coconut water, and kiwi, followed by practice. With music as her constant companion, I always start and end my workout with music, she says. It keeps me focused and keeps me motivated for what's next. This intentional structure creates the foundation for championship performance. This is the natural progression the billionaire wants them to internalize. They travel next to Rome, a city where ancient thinkers, generals, and leaders once shaped ideas that still echo today. Standing before centuries-old architecture, the lesson becomes more vivid. Greatness requires patience. The Colosseum was not built in a day, nor is a strong mind, nor is a meaningful life. The artist starts noticing her creativity returning in sparks, not through pressure, but through presence. The entrepreneur begins feeling confidence not from success, but from inner steadiness. This is an important shift. They are no longer chasing greatness. They are growing into it. The billionaire tells them something striking. The world teaches you to chase validation, applause, status. But real power is quiet. It does not beg to be seen. It simply is. This inner strength is the difference between those who crumble under pressure and those who rise because of it. Sam Altman captures this when he writes about productivity. Picking the right thing to work on is the most important element of productivity, and usually almost ignored. It doesn't matter how fast you move if it's in a worthless direction. Internal clarity creates external impact. Then he introduces another powerful idea, the habit installation protocol. It states that when you try to build a new habit, you will go through 3 phases. Phase 1, destruction. The old identity fights back. The body resists waking early. The mind complains. Everything feels difficult. Most people quit here, not because they are weak, but because they mistake discomfort for failure. Phase 2, installation. The discomfort continues, but the body begins adjusting. Willpower becomes routine. The new behavior begins to thread itself into identity. This phase demands resilience. This is where champions are forged. Phase 3, integration. The habit becomes automatic. Identity shifts. What was once difficult now feels natural. Waking up at 5 a.m. is no longer a battle. It is home. This explains why people who achieve lasting success are not merely talented. They were willing to endure Phase 1 and Phase 2, while others retreated to comfort. To demonstrate this, the billionaire references Elon Musk. Regardless of how the world perceives him, his rise is rooted in a willingness to endure discomfort longer than others. Sleeping on factory floors, sacrificing ego, tolerating ridicule, persisting through impossible challenges. While many wanted the glory of innovation, Musk endured the identity evolution it required. His habits built the identity of a pioneer. An identity shapes destiny. The entrepreneur and artist realize that waking at 5 a.m. is not about productivity. It is about self-respect. It is a declaration. My life will no longer be governed by laziness, distraction, fear, or delay. It is a commitment to mastering the inner world before stepping into the outer world. But mastery also requires something deeper, the courage to pursue a meaningful life, not an easy life. The billionaire warns them that the modern world conditions people to avoid discomfort at all cost, to sedate pain with scrolling, to escape boredom with entertainment. to run from silence with noise. Yet discomfort is where potential grows. Silence is where wisdom speaks. Boredom is where creativity awakens. This is why dawn matters. It is the space where the world cannot interrupt the dialogue between you and your destiny. Even leaders who don't identify as morning people find ways to structure their early hours. Google CEO Sundar Pichai describes himself as not a morning person, yet Oprah Winfrey never sets an alarm. The lesson here is profound. It's not about conforming to someone else's schedule, but about designing your own ritual of self-mastery. The billionaire now turns their attention to the cycles of greatness, a rhythm that every high performer experiences. High excellence, deep rest, renewal, higher excellence. Burnout is not a sign that you are weak. It is a sign that you have neglected the rhythm of recovery. The morning routine supports this rhythm by structuring energy. The day begins with physical activation and mental clarity, which increases productivity. But it also ends with intentional recovery, sleep, reflection, disconnection. Excellence is sustainable only when rest is honored. This is why many talented people fade. They do not understand rhythm. Think of creative geniuses who burned out young. Brilliance without recovery collapses. Or entrepreneurs who succeeded financially but lost joy. Progress without presence becomes emptiness. To rise is admirable. To rise and remain whole, that is mastery. Sam Altman demonstrates this balance, prioritizing sleep as one of the most important things he needs to be productive. He avoids eating too much before bed, skips alcohol, uses a sleep tracker, and prefers a cold, dark, quiet room with a good mattress. He understands that the morning's power comes from the night's rest. As the lessons deepen, something subtle begins to shift in the characters. They no longer see the 5 a.m. habit as a tactic, but as a path of self-elevation. The artist feels grounded in her creativity. The entrepreneur begins to re-engage with his work not through anxiety, but purpose. The billionaire summarizes this transformation in a single truth. Your morning is where you build your power. Your day is where you express it. Your night is where you protect it. He tells them, and us, that the world is increasingly chaotic. Distraction is modern poverty. Focus is modern wealth. Calmness is modern power. And early rising is the doorway to all three. Research from a 2008 study published in the Journal of General Psychology found that early risers tend to procrastinate less than night owls. Apple CEO Tim Cook exemplifies this, waking at 3:45 a.m. not to boast, but because he has discovered when his mind works best. The characters now stand on the edge of a shift, the old identity fading, the new identity forming. But the journey is not complete, because learning to wake early is only the beginning. Now they must learn how to live early, how to design a life aligned with purpose, creativity, courage, and contribution. This is where part 3 begins, the final elevation, the shift from morning mastery to life mastery, from routine to legacy, purpose, legacy, service, and becoming the architect of your destiny. The journey now shifts from habit to identity, from routine to purpose. The billionaire has guided the entrepreneur and the artist into the rhythm of rising at 5 a.m., mastering the victory hour, and transforming their inner world. But now he takes them deeper, into the realm where success becomes significance, where achievement becomes impact, where living becomes legacy. They travel with him to South Africa, to a place rich in beauty and history, where oceans meet mountains, and where the air itself seems to carry wisdom. Standing at the edge of the ocean at dawn, he explains something profound. A great life is not built by chance, it is built by design. People do not rise to the level of their goals. They fall to the level of their systems. This is why millions wish for change, but only a few transform. Dreams are plentiful. Structures are rare. The billionaire begins explaining the life design system, a deliberate architecture for living with clarity, courage, and intention. It starts with understanding that every person has a unique genius, a signature contribution only they can make. But most people never discover it because they drown in noise, comparison, and survival. The 5 a.m. habit clears the noise. The victory hour strengthens the self. Now, the individual must honor their unique calling. He asks the artist, "Why do you create?" She answers slowly, discovering her truth as she speaks, to remind people of beauty, emotion, meaning. He nods, because this is not simply creativity, it is service. He asks the entrepreneur, "Why do you build?" After reflection, he answers, "To solve problems, to help people live better, to make change real." Again, the billionaire nods, because business, when done consciously, is also service. This is the shift many never make, the realization that greatness is not for ego, but for contribution. Wealth, recognition, and influence become byproducts, not goals. He tells them, "The world is full of individuals trying to be impressive, but the world is transformed by those who choose to be valuable." This is visible everywhere today. Think of Chioma Nadi, the British Nigerian editor who rose to lead British Vogue, not because she chased fame, but because she consistently elevated culture, narrative, and representation. Or Ayinoluwa Abueji, who co-created Flutterwave and Andila, not for glory, but to solve real African infrastructure challenges. Or consider Burna Boy, who followed in the footsteps of Fela Kuti with his deeply original flow and signature groove. He didn't try to sound like the world. He sounded like himself, and the world came to him. Between 2017 and 2022, streams of Afrobeat songs on Spotify increased by 550%, and from 2021 to 2022, revenues from the Nigerian music industry grew 63%. This growth was led by artists who were authentic, not imitative. When identity aligns with purpose, authenticity becomes magnetism. People follow those who are rooted in who they are. The billionaire teaches that purpose is not loud. Purpose whispers. Purpose calls gently. Purpose emerges in stillness, which is why mornings matter so much. He then introduces the twin cycles of elite performance, a rhythm used by world-class performers. Deep focus, deep rest, deep focus, deep rest. Most people only know one half of the equation. They push constantly, grind endlessly, believing nonstop work is the path to success. But burnout is not the result of working too hard. It is the result of working without rhythm. Morning routines sustain focus. Evening rest sustains life. Sam Altman exemplifies this when he writes, "If you're going to do something really important, you are very likely going to work both smart and hard. The biggest prizes are heavily competed for." But he also emphasizes systems over constant hustle, making lists, protecting morning hours, avoiding worthless meetings. The billionaire teaches that time blocking, designing your day with intentional pockets of focus creation, is the secret of high achievement. The entrepreneur begins structuring his work time so that his best cognitive hours are protected from distraction. The artist begins structuring periods of deep creation followed by recovery. Their productivity increases, but more importantly, their peace returns. Because mastery is not merely doing more. It is doing what matters, deeply, consistently, gracefully. As productivity expert Laura Vanderkam notes, mornings are the perfect time to plan the day ahead and think about how you'd like to spend your time to set yourself up for success. This pre-planning prevents reactive living and creates intentional existence. Then, the billionaire brings them to a quiet hillside at sunrise and shares the most essential principle of the entire journey. Your outer results mirror your inner world. A scattered mind creates a scattered life. A fearful heart creates hesitant decisions. A neglected body creates tired ambition. A disconnected soul creates a purposeless existence. But a calm mind creates clarity. A strong heart creates courage. A healthy body creates energy. A grounded soul creates meaning. This is why the morning routine is non-negotiable, because it is where the inner world is strengthened, so the outer world can reflect greatness. He asks them to reflect. Who must I become to live the life I envision? Not what must I do? Not what must I have? But who must I become? Identity shapes action. Action shapes habits. Habits shape life. Life shapes legacy. As workplace performance expert Hannah Pryor explains, A solid morning routine builds mental scaffolding. Structure before the chaos of the day tries to knock you off balance. This scaffolding is the architecture of identity transformation. This brings us to the final transformation. Legacy is built in moments, decisions, and habits, not someday, but today. Not with grand gestures, but with daily devotion. He explains that there are 3 stages in the life of a person who chooses mastery. 1. The rise, when you dare to choose the uncommon path. Waking early, protecting focus, building internal strength. This stage requires courage. 2. The climb, when identity is refined through adversity. Doubt will come. Obstacles will challenge you. This stage requires consistency. 3. The crown, when your life begins to reflect your purpose. Your contribution becomes visible. Your peace becomes magnetic. Your work becomes service. This stage requires humility. The entrepreneur and artist realize something. The journey of the 5 a.m. club is not about mornings. It is about who wakes up. The person who rises at 5 a.m. is not the same person who sleeps until noon. One is designing life. The other is drifting through it. Rising early is a symbol, a declaration, that your life will be self-directed, not reactive. Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter and Block Incorporated, demonstrates this principle by walking to work every morning. Kevin Kruse, author of 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management, does a daily 20-minute HIIT session on the treadmill. Multi-board member Fritz Dirk Van Passion runs 10 miles every morning. Each has discovered that morning movement is not optional, it's foundational. And then the billionaire leaves them, because true masters do not create dependency. They create self-direction. The final message he gives them, and us, is this. Do not live your life as though you have 1,000 more to live. Do not wait to be ready. Do not wait to feel confident. Do not wait for permission. Your greatness is waiting inside your ordinary days. Meet it at dawn. The entrepreneur returns home, but not as the anxious man he once was. He leads with clarity, presence, courage. His business begins to flourish, not because the world changed, but because he changed. The artist begins to create the work she once feared she was no longer capable of. Not to impress, not to be admired, but because art now flows from a clear and steady soul. Her work touches people more deeply than before. Their lives are not perfect, but they are theirs. Fully, consciously, purposefully. Like Arthur Brooks, who describes his morning routine as calibrating the work of the soul. Through physical activity, metaphysical practice, and intentional preparation, they have learned that the morning is not just preparation for the day. It is preparation for life. The 5 a.m. club did not give them success. It gave them self-mastery. And from self-mastery, everything else rises. And now, this journey reaches you. The invitation is the same. Not to wake early simply to be productive. Not to chase achievement or validation. But to step into the quiet hour where the strongest version of you is waiting. The world is loud. But the world is only loud because most people are asleep, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. As Hannah Pryor notes, you can approach your day with strategy instead of hoping for the best. Success often requires pre-planning behind the scenes. Chef Ferran Adria famously ate a different fruit every day to stretch his creative palate, signaling his brain to stay open to novelty and risk-taking. Even small morning rituals can create profound shifts in consciousness. Rise while they sleep. Strengthen while they ease. Think while they follow. Lead while they distract themselves. The sunrise is the portal. The ritual is the key. Your future is the door. And as Sam Altman reminds us, compound growth gets discussed as a financial concept, but it works in careers as well. And it is magic. A small productivity gain, compounded over 50 years, is worth a lot. The journey begins tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Final reflections. In 2024 and 2025, the 5 a.m. philosophy is no longer fringe. It has become foundational for those who understand that attention is the new currency. From Sam Altman fasting for 15 hours and using full-spectrum LED light therapy during his morning email sessions, to Ariana Huffington deliberately avoiding her phone to practice gratitude instead, the pattern is unmistakable. Elite performers protect their mornings with religious devotion. Research supports this instinct. One study from the University of Sussex found that just 6 minutes of reading can reduce stress by up to 68%. Another study conducted in New Zealand found that people who dedicated 20 minutes daily to expressive writing 3 days in a row after a medically necessary biopsy healed faster than a control group. The body responds to morning rituals at a cellular level. The modern challenge is not waking early. It's resisting the 1,000 distractions that follow. Instead of reaching for phones to doom scroll, successful people start their day with something that elevates their thinking, such as listening to a quick podcast, reading a poem, or taking in a short, inspiring article. The 5 a.m. Club is not about joining an exclusive society. It is about reclaiming sovereignty over your time, your mind, and your future. It is about understanding that while the world sleeps, empires are built, not out there, but within. Your days are numbered. Your mornings are sacred. Your future is waiting. The only question is, will you meet it at dawn? If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.